Hello and welcome. This is John Cogan, the CEO of Performative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar entitled Gain Agility and Control with SAP Business Planning and Consolidation. Today we will see how SAP solutions help companies communicate, collaborate, and build confidence in their corporate reporting, planning, and analysis. Via presentation and demonstration, attendees will discover the value of this widely adopted application from SAP's Enterprise Performance Management Solution Suite. Before we get there, a few items. Number one, thanks, of course, to our sponsor, SAP. We greatly appreciate their support, and we are looking forward to today's demonstration. A few notes on Performative for those who are new to the platform. Performative is the largest and fastest growing online resource for senior-level corporate finance, treasury, accounting, and related professionals. The platform is entirely ad-free and noise-free, and it's a community of peers helping one another learn and get work done. It's a wonderful thing. Please check it out at performative.com if you haven't already. A few notes specific to today's events. Number one, a link to today's presentation and a recording of this webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event. The sort of outlining deck is already on performative.com/resources if you'd like to download it. But all of the demonstration that we'll be showing you will only be available if you actually look at the recording online. So the surrounding slides are already there. The recording will be posted within 24 hours of the event. A quick reminder, there's no CPE for this webinar. This is a product demo. So that's just a quick note, since we do a lot of CPE-based events. We would like to encourage you to ask questions. We have the person presenting today not only is an expert on this platform, but he's also spent many years in FP&A. He really understands our world, what we're doing here, what we would want to do with a platform like this. So he's uniquely qualified to answer questions. And heck, we've got him here for free, so let's go ahead and take advantage of that and ask questions. Feel free to ask questions as we go. We will queue up the questions for when we get to the Q&A portion of the event, which is the last 25% or so of our hour here this morning. Finally, after the event, you will be asked to take a short survey regarding today's webinar. We always like to know what we could do better, and if you have follow-up questions, we are happy to connect you with today's speaker. And that's simply the click of a button away when we get to that survey. So we make it really easy for you to request a connection to today's speaker or to today's sponsor, SAP. So feel free to stick with us and take that short survey at the end. It takes literally about 60 seconds. Okay, so it is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, David Roberts. David is a Senior Director in the Analytics Group at SAP North America. David joined SAP in 2012 after spending 6 years as part of the Under Armour Financial Planning and Analysis team. Today, he is the Executive Strategist for many of SAP's customers in support of financial planning, compliance, and analytics best practices. David holds a Bachelor's of Science in Finance from George Washington University and an MBA from the Terry College of Business at the University of Georgia. Leveraging over 10 years of hands-on experience with financial processes and success implementing SAP planning and consolidations, David will share best practices and the art of the possible concepts for world-class planning with today's attendees. So thanks to everyone for joining us. David, at this point, I welcome you, and please take it away.
Thanks so much, John, and thank you all for joining our session here today. What I want to do is just jump right in. And today what I'll be sharing with you are really the 3 C's relative to financial planning and analysis. Some of the topics that I hear most often when speaking with customers of SAP and those within the financial planning and analysis community really revolve around how do we communicate to a larger or broader set of consumers within our organization as well as outside. So as a part of this discussion and demonstration, what I'll share with you is how leveraging technology like SAP's Planning and Consolidation Solution, or VPC, as well as some of the visualization solutions from SAP like dashboards, integrated seamlessly together, help to drive just that, the ability to communicate across broad audiences, as well as improve on the ability to do drive time decision-making and dissemination of this information across your organization. The second C is around collaboration. How do we ensure that finance doesn't become sort of the gatherer of information that it's been in the past, but truly leverages all of those who are closest to information throughout your organization and even outside of your organization to help drive greater forecasting credibility and confidence, as well as do what we like to refer to as integrated business planning. All of this will be exemplified through an ease-of-use user interface that's found within the planning and consolidation solution. And then finally, how do we increase our confidence in the forecast that's being built by our organization? One of the things that I'm really excited to share with you is, in addition to greater visualizations that exist within the SAP Analytics suite, is the ability to leverage scientific forecasting, so taking tried and true predictive algorithms and incorporating that into your process for building your plan, your budget, and your forecast. So with that in mind, we always like to start by saying begin with the end in mind. And what is the real end result? It's not necessarily getting to the point where we aggregate data, but it's more so identifying what are the greatest expectations that are placed on finance professionals today, both externally and internally. Within my experience, as well as the experience of my colleagues, there are three things that we see actively today within the marketplace. It's the ability to provide accurate guidance on our future performance and the outlook, both externally as well as managing that confidence internally so that the team performs. In addition to that, you know how it goes when you're in finance, you're tasked with don't just give us the plan, but over-deliver. How do we outperform those financial objectives and create sustainable value within our organization? And last but not least, as finance has transformed over the years, it's really a task of how do we deliver superior service at a reduced cost. Just like any other shared service organization, you'll find that finance is one of the first groups to receive a budget cut when times are tight. So we have to be able to do more with less. Last year, Gartner actually provided a study on what are the top priorities for finance professionals. Some of the things that they looked at are which components are being updated within their enterprise in the year 2012. And you'll see, I'll just call up the top three here: performance measurement, forecasting and dashboards, planning, budgeting, and forecasting, and the ability to enhance or expedite the financial consolidation and reporting process were the top three things being addressed within 2012. They also took an opportunity to get some foresight into what do CFOs and finance professionals see as opportunities for 2013. You'll notice that the trend doesn't change too much. But I do want to highlight that in addition to the planning, budgeting, and forecasting, and being able to visualize with the use of dashboards and scorecards around KPIs, they also want to be able to do both customer and product profitability. You'll notice as we kind of drift down towards the end there, greater than 20% also see the need to do things like predictive modeling and statistical analysis, which we'll get into with a bit more detail in just a moment. So with that in mind, if we know what finance professionals want to do, how are we actually spending our time these days? Well, you find that less than a quarter of finance's time is truly being spent on what's considered to be value-added initiatives and services. 47% spend their time simply collecting and aggregating and validating data, which truly is not a value add. It's simply a tactical step in the overall end goal. About 30% is spent around administering the process, so getting everyone up to speed on what steps need to be accomplished in order to wrap up the process. And then finally, about 23% is what's actually being contributed to providing value-added services. The goal here is to shift this dramatically so that more than half the time is focused on the value-added services in a very short period of time. When we look at some of the organizations that SAP's value engineering team has had an opportunity to work with, and just a quick plug here, the value engineering team has the ability to collect and benchmark statistics across a series of industries as well as a very vast customer base to identify some of the KPIs for your peers and then rank you against your peers to determine where your greatest opportunities to enhance your overall services being provided are. Three KPIs that I found to be quite interesting are shown here on this particular graph. The first one, how much does it cost as a percent of our revenue to run as a finance organization? you'll find that the average 0.8% is actually pretty small compared to the worst, which is 1.2%. When we look at how long does it take to actually go through the process of close to report, about 14.8% fall in the average, with 22 showing up in the worst. And then the final one, DSO, one of those things in a very cash-strapped marketplace that everyone's looking at is, we find that 52 are falling in the average, with 74 ending up in the worst. So once again, it's the ability to drive enhancements and improvements in some of these areas to truly be a greater service partner throughout your organization. The final thing here, before we jump into the demo, is finance really making progress to becoming a better partner in the business. And when APQC did a poll in 2012, about 32% said that they're making some progress, with the rest kind of falling short. So one of the things that we want to do as a part of this discussion and opening up a dialogue with all of you who are on the call, as well as the greater finance community, is find out how can we leverage technology and some of these tried and true solutions that are being made available to you in order to improve some of these statistics that we see going in the wrong direction today. So as we begin to discuss how we can communicate to broader audiences, how about we jump into the demo at this point? One of the things that you may remember from a couple slides before was the ability to build dashboards and illustrate in a very quick, readable way the KPIs that are germane to a particular organization. A good friend of mine was able to put this dashboard together for me, and you'll notice that it's actually being rendered in a PowerPoint slide. Now, one of the things that I find to be very intriguing with this is you can build out your dashboard using the SAP dashboard solution, and simply with a matter of 1 or 2 clicks, publish it to a dashboard. And anybody can do it. It's really meant for a business user, not a techie, to be able to take advantage of this solution. And you'll find as we begin to scroll across some of the tabs here, what we have done is really capture what's important to an organization from a KPI perspective. It's giving people the ability to get a quick read on how we're doing without putting a lot of Excel spreadsheets in front of them with numbers. When you give an image, it actually burns that sense of where we are as an organization into the minds of those who find this to be important. One of the things that we've been able to do with one of our customers who leverage the SAP Planning and Consolidation solution is their organization does an integrated business planning model. So people from the sales organization and throughout the planning and production planning organization all work together to build up sort of their bottoms-up forecast. And when it's all said and done, when they want to give the first blush of their plan or their forecast to their CFO, they'll present it in the form of this dashboard. And the CFO can see consolidated what's the outlook for the organization. One of the other things, which I think is really cool, if we begin to take a look at what appears here to the left under growth forecast, let's say the CFO would like to call an audible. We want the ability to actually change our growth forecast volume, say by, I don't know, 3%. Or 2.5%, 3%. And by doing that and selecting where that adjustment should be made, let's choose the back half of the year by simply clicking Q3 and Q4. You'll notice that it's immediately updated the overall outcome of my forecast. And there's really no need to stop here. Beyond just showing what the adjusted revenue would be and the impact that it would be on our margins, I can simply click the Save button here, which will take this aggregated value that's been put in as a scenario and create a new scenario version within the planning tool, disaggregated down to the same level of granularity as the rest of your forecast. This is something that can be done real time and can be adjusted very quickly on the fly. This is some of the flexibility that many organizations that I've had an opportunity to come in contact with have looked for over the years. To continue to deliver on this, it's going back to how do we encourage collaboration across the entire organization. Well, what I want to do at this point is kind of show you the ease of use of the planning solution that can be acquired throughout your entire organization. And I know that we're all finance professionals and accountants, but let's think of it from the perspective of someone who may just be a casual user of the solution, but is a contributor to your plan and your forecast. This has to be as simple as possible to not detract from their desire to be a part of the team and to be accountable for delivering their portion of the forecast. So you'll notice here I'm simply logging in. There are several ways to gate how you bring users into the solution. You can use Active Directory, single sign-on, and a whole host of other ways to authenticate users before arriving within the solution. At this point, after entering in my login credentials, I'm on a landing page, which is actually web-based, that allows me to be gated to what's most relevant to me as an end user. So in other words, based on my user account, it's going to show me certain values here for reports and workspaces that are really relevant to me. One of the things that I may want to take a look at is, going back to our dashboard example, who says that it's only reserved for the CFO? I want to see what are some of the KPIs relevant to my particular role within the organization. By simply clicking on the performance overview link, you'll notice that it's created a new workspace here at the top. So a new tab has been created on my toolbar here within the planning solution. And it shows the KPIs that are really relevant to me. In this particular case, I'm looking at things not just from a financial perspective, but it's also incorporating, for those who use SAP's governance, risk, or compliance components, some of the risks that have been highlighted as critical things to take a look at, and how we're doing, how we're trending overall. I can incorporate how I present myself, say, to Wall Street. So if I had segmentation by region, it's showing in a graphical way how we're performing as an organization. I also have the ability to kind of drill into any one of these items. So by simply clicking on net revenue within the top KPI, it's adjusted some of the graphs to the right to reflect the change in perspective here. If I return back to my Home tab, I can now launch back into some of the other tools that are available directly within the planning solution. So let's just go through the process of investigating a variance that appears. So for my Home tab, what I want to do is take a look at the Excel add-in, which is available as a part of the planning solution. So the key here is to remember that you have more than one user interface that's available to you. And based on your particular needs, you can deploy this however you see fit. One example would be if you're a retailer and you have retail stores that are responsible for updating on a week-to-week basis their forecasts. This gives you the ability to deploy a light footprint using the web interface within a retail store without having the need to go in and deploy the thick client that would be the Excel user interface. In this particular case, I'm just selecting a different connection. And you'll see that it's brought up my Excel interface, or what we call the EPM add-in. Notice across the top, it gives a list of the dimensionality that exists within my planning model. Things like the product or the legal entity. Am I looking at the category of actual, or is this one of my forecasts? I also have the ability to change the currency that's being represented or rendered as a part of this particular report that I may be building. So do I want to see the functional currency or one of the many reporting currencies that are available for my organization? To kind of jump in, what I want to do is pull up an existing report that appears within the planning solution for my organization. So I have a formatted template here that I'm going to start with. And you'll see that the way that the reports are created is really by drag and drop. So we'll start with bringing in entity onto our report. So all I did was just drag over entity into cell A3. And now what I want to do is also bring in some of the products. So I've already created two row dimensions. And finally, what I want to do is show by region and by product line what my performance has been from an actuals perspective over time. So I've simply dragged in Q2 of 2011, and you'll notice that it immediately created or brought back, refreshed the value that appears at this particular intersection. So the intersection, just to remind you, is sales revenue for actuals in my European entity for all product lines, and I'm rendering that in local currency. If I wanted to change, say, the actuals, I would simply drag it in. And I can double click to do things like go from the actual to comparing it to a target. So let's try that. I'm just typing in target here. And so now it's brought up for the second quarter of 2011, both my actuals as well as target or forecast for all product lines in Europe. And since this is leveraging the Excel user interface, you'll notice that if you look across the top here, all of the items on the ribbon are typical to Excel until you get over towards the end here. You have the EPM, or Enterprise Performance Management item, or toolbar, if you will. What I can do is leverage all of the same tools, tips, and tricks that I've always used within Excel. It's just being enhanced by this UI that's being provided by the SAP Planning solution. So what I want to do is create a variance calculation at this point. Just like you would do in a standard Excel spreadsheet, I'm giving the column a name, and I'm putting in my formula here. And finally, it's showing me what my variance is. So I have a 2% variance of target to actuals at this point. One of the other things that you have the ability to do is by simply double-clicking on Europe, you'll see that it has expanded into the next level in that hierarchy of all of the countries or regions that are represented within Europe. So I can see how we're doing in Great Britain. I have an issue there, a variance of -7%, as well as in places like Italy, France, and Germany. And keep in mind that this logic applies no matter what dimension you're using. As long as there's a hierarchy created, or you want to see it as a hierarchy, you have the ability to drill down. One other thing that I'll note is that you can actually go through the process of not just drilling down, but drill through. So for customers who are already using, say, SAP's ERP solution, let's say you wanted to drill through to your ERP solution and see maybe line item detail or any commentary that may have been posted along with a journal entry. You're capable of doing that very easily out of the box with the SAP Planning solution. It uses all of the security that you already have for your ERP solution and just inherits it as a pass-through from the planning solution to ERP. So, just as I mentioned before, I'm showing you here the ability not to just drill by your entity, but also by product lines. So instead of looking at all product lines for Great Britain, I'm now looking at the subset of product lines, or product family, if you will, underneath of all product lines. So canned and dried products, dairy products, fruits, vegetables, and bakery. You have the ability to either do the drill by using a double click, or you'll notice here as I've highlighted, you have the ability to expand using the menu item at the top. So it's just another way to easily broaden the use of this solution across your organization. And I'm just drilling through to the lowest level of detail available. Next, one of the things I want to show you is it's just very common in our day and age that things always and will change. And one of the things that I've personally experienced is you go through the process of creating a report. And as you create that report, you find that it's important to add in any new products that may have come in from your product developers and product managers, or maybe it's something like a GL account from the perspective of finance and accounting. You've added a new GL account. How easy is it to do that? Well, with just a matter of a few clicks going from our web interface here, you'll see that I've come to the administrative tab, or administration tab here, and I'm looking at dimensions and models. I'm going to go into my dimensions, and I'm just going to add a new dimension or a new product. So if I go into Edit Members, I'm simply going to type in my new product ID and give it a description. And I also want to point to where it should appear within the hierarchy. So I could either type it in or change my view to hierarchy instead of list view. Expand to see where I would like to drop in my new product that I've created. Click and drag it into place. That easy. So we know that we've created this new product what happens to some of the reports or the forms that we use for people to input data into the plan or the forecast. Let's try by setting a new target. So I'm going back to my home screen here. And what I want to do is open up, instead of the EPM Addin or the Excel user interface, I'm just going to use a web form here to create a form for some of my end users to enter in their plan numbers. So creating the input form is pretty simple. Just like we saw with the report, you can drag and drop. In my case, I want to drag in my products, and I'm going to view that by time. So I'm dragging time down into the columns. And here I'm looking at the third quarter of 2011 for all of my dairy products. The next step here is I want to adjust what I have in my forecast for July 2011 for yogurt. So I'm just going to change that to 1,000. You'll notice that once you make a change on the form, it highlights it in yellow to help you keep track of what you've adjusted before you send it in. And I'm also going to add in a value for my new product, flavored yogurt. And you'll notice I didn't have to do anything special in order to bring in the new product that we created. I simply expanded dairy products, which is where I dropped it within the hierarchy, and it was immediately made available to me. I can do things like quickly copy and paste in values for additional months. And then finally, I'll hit Save Data. And what this is going to do is immediately send it in and make it available to anyone who has access to this intersection of data within my planning solution. And just like that, we're all done. We've updated our targets. We've actually added in a value for our forecast and our new product. And now, let me show you how you can consume this information with ease in not just Excel user interface, but also things like PowerPoint. You'll find that the entire Office suite has been made available as a user interface for the planning solution as well as consolidations. So this time, we're just going to click on PowerPoint. And just like you did with the Excel user interface, I'm going to drag Entity into my row access and do the same with product. And I want to view this by time. And so now within PowerPoint, I've easily created a brand new presentation. This is something that a lot of our customers have been using for things like board packages, or if there's an executive presentation deck that you use on a recurring basis. Once you've created this within Excel and saved it into the planning solution, all you have to do each time that this report needs to be regenerated is open it up and press refresh in order to get the latest and greatest numbers. So with that being said, let's go in and just try to modify some of the information that appears here. I want to change the description that I currently have available for my entity. And you'll notice I've updated the description. All of the same features and functionality that you had within the web client also appear within the PowerPoint. The next thing I want to show you is around consolidations. One of the challenges that I know I've faced in the past around consolidations is the ability to track where we are within the process, especially if you're a multinational, multi-entity organization. It's very key to know where everyone is within the process and what version of the truth are you currently looking at. Let's take a look at how the consolidations process works. Now, the one thing that I'll mention to you is we're not changing solutions. There's one singular solution from SAP to do both planning and consolidations, and that's VPC. So in updating the scope here, I'm going into my ownership manager. And you'll notice that we're still in the web user interface for VPC. I'm going into my group consolidated parent node of the hierarchy. And I want to drill down into what I have for Europe and the Northeast consolidated. You'll see that you can navigate through using the member selector, the entire hierarchy. to get to the place that you need to go. For me, I want to take a look at Finland. And what I want to do is update the consolidation method. I'm changing it to global, and then changing my consolidation percent for current to 100%. This is great not just for during the time of consolidations, but also when you have the need to possibly perform an analysis of what would your organization look like should you, say, acquire a new company. Perhaps you want to change your ownership structure and you want to test out how that would look or the impact that it would have on your financial statements before you actually make the decision. You can do all of this real time without putting in a lot of heavy investment or updating a ton of Excel spreadsheets and linked workbooks in order to make it happen. Once you've updated your ownership, you'll see that you have a green banner across the top showing that the ownership data has been updated. And what I want to do next here is actually perform my close. So once again, we're looking at that same web user interface. I'm on my home page. I'm logged in as a different user here. You'll see that now I'm showing up as Carolyn Stevens. So my start page looks a lot different from the person who was doing planning. And as I mentioned before, this is something that is configurable. It can be set up based on the actual user. In my case, from the start page, I'm simply jumping into my activities. I can see that my monthly close process of 10 steps, I have 8 completed. I can also see which steps are open down here. By looking at Finland, I have the process, or the step for entering in their monthly data has not been completed, it's open, and that the final review and consolidation, as to be expected, is still pending. If I click on the enter monthly data step within my consolidation process, I can get a few additional details associated with it, or I can actually begin the process of entering in the monthly data. So one of the other concepts that are available to you are business process flows, or BPFs, which allow you to walk a user through each of the steps required in order to complete a particular task in a process. In my case, simply pulling in that additional data. So the great thing about the planning and consolidation solution, VPC, is that it doesn't require that all of the data exists in one data warehouse or in the same place. You can pull from multiple places. As an end user, you have the ability to pick where you want the data to come from and how it's loaded. There's also a great deal of security baked in to make sure that only the data that's been agreed upon is allowed to be loaded within your planning and consolidation solution. In my case, I'm just importing data from a flat file for one of my entities that's not on our ERP solution. And I'm going to load that in for Finland. And you'll notice that the wizard is just walking me through each of the steps required in order to make sure that I truly have the right set of data and that it's being loaded to the appropriate place. When I click Finish here, I'm able to actually view the information that I brought in for Finland. So I just simply pulled up the next step here within this business process flow by clicking on a link. It pulled up the balance sheet by flows report that was created by the corporate accounting team. And I can see this balance sheet and each of the steps within the consolidating process for all of the balance sheet accounts. And with that, I've actually completed 9 of the 10 steps. The last one that I noticed here was as I was going through my consolidations process, there were a couple entries that I needed to post that were missing. Within BPC, you have the ability to create a journal entry, post it within BPC, and then using, if you're on the NetWeaver version, and using our business warehouse solution, using a process called retraction, pull that journal entry back into your ERP system. It's really a matter of what process works for your organization. I know some organizations prefer to do all journal entries in the ERP solution and allow it to flow through. to the consolidating tool, or vice versa, start in the consolidation tool and push it back to ERP. So I'm going back to my entity for Finland, and I'm going to create an entry for some of my leasing data. By simply clicking on it, you'll notice at the bottom here, it's giving me sort of a free form that allows me to select which accounts, flow, and the intercompany designation that needs to be updated, as well as the amount. So still doing the two-sided entry here to record this journal entry. Once it's all said and done, I'm going to post this journal entry. I'm going to update my flow to show that it's a transfer. I can copy and paste just as I would in any other solution. And once I've saved and posted, I'll receive that same green bar that we saw on the other screen, showing that it's successfully saved. So now that journal entry should be reflected in my balance sheet. One other thing that I think is pretty unique to our solution from a consolidations perspective is the concept of the control monitor. Within the control monitor, each time a step is executed as a part of the consolidations process, it's actually letting me know if the step passed or failed, if it's actually been started, so to be executed would indicate that it has not been started yet. I can even drill in to any of these items to see what actually took place. Or in the event that I want to complete a step, just as I've shown you before, you have the ability to launch that step using a business process flow from here as well. So for this particular one, I'm going to run the control monitor against a particular step in the consolidation process. In our case, it's actuals for January 2009, and I'm looking at the consolidation group CG211. You'll notice that what was to be processed has changed to failed, and I can drill in to see why it's failing. And you'll see towards the bottom here, it calls out which control actually failed. Well, the result in the P&L does not equal the balance sheet. Another one is that this is not just a, this particular instance is a warning that there is a zero entry in there, zero value entry. I can filter out to show just the failed items as opposed to all of the steps. And I can view a report showing the actual impact. I'm going to save this data to adjust for that one failed control. So I've basically put in a journal entry. And at this point, after running the controls again, I'm finding that there's another error. Depreciation of assets and balance sheet should be, can't really see that. Let me see if I can drag this out a little bit. I kind of skipped through there, but what I wanted to show was that at the end of the day, you can actually see the status of each of the controls that have been run against during your consolidations process, and get an indication of where you need to work in order to complete the process in total. The last step here is I'm going to check the consolidation status using the Consolidation Monitor, as well as run an incremental consolidation. So this part is relatively new, the ability to not rerun the entire consolidations process, but just those items that have changed being updated. It makes the process much more efficient and faster. So in this particular case, looking at my Consolidations Monitor here, you'll see that a tab was created for checking consolidation status from the Home tab. And I'm taking a another look at Finland again. We're really beating up on Finland today. And I want to change the work status. Work status just indicates where we are in the consolidation process for this particular entity. I'm going to run currency conversion against against all of my records within consolidations. In particular, we're looking at 2009 actuals for January. And with a matter of a few clicks, the process has been completed. So what we've looked at thus far, before we wrap up here, is the ability to plan across the organization, the ease of use for the planning solution, as well as consolidations for those who may not be extremely savvy with some of the technology that's available today, as well as doing an end-to-end consolidations process in addition to an incremental run of consolidations, all within a few simple clicks. The one thing that I wanted to end off with is some of the art of the possible, if you will. Another one of the solutions that we have from SAP is called SAP Predictive Analysis. Predictive Analysis is both a visualization tool as well as a business user-focused tool for performing predictive algorithms or statistical algorithms against your data. If we look at it from the perspective of visualization, let's say you want to see sales or your network by region. You can take advantage of things like your actual data loaded into the predictive analysis tool and see all of your sales sort of in the form of a heat map across, or a geospatial map across your entire region. In my particular case, I'm just looking at the U.S., but this applies to just about any region that's available. You can load it in by the actual name or using the longitude and latitude coordinates for a particular place. You can also do some of the simple merge and visualization. So let's say that you have data that exists within your core ERP solution, and you want to augment that with maybe some market data that you get from, say, a Bloomberg or one of the other services that are available. With a matter of a couple clicks, you have the ability to merge that data together. Well, we're talking about this more from a planning perspective. And some of the use cases that we find are that many people want to look at what's the impact of a change of a particular variable within my business on my overall financial results. One of the things you can do is take advantage of some of the tried and true statistical algorithms that are available, ones that are delivered as a part of the product, or even within the product. We've opened it up to take advantage of our algorithms, so hundreds upon hundreds of algorithms that are available for free in the marketplace. In my particular case, what I did was with VPC, I pulled in my actuals. I also pulled in my forecast here that I had within the planning solution. And what I wanted to do was kind of run sensitivity against the forecast that I had within my forecast, or that I had within the planning solution. So what I did was I took that data from VPC inside of the predictive analysis tool and simply ran a triple exponential smoothing time series algorithm against it. And you'll notice that it seems like we're pretty much in line with what the algorithm would produce. This is in a matter of a couple clicks. And the great thing about it is it doesn't have to end here. You also have the ability to take this data and push it back in as an additional scenario within the planning solution, within VPC, directly from the predictive analysis tool. It's just taking advantage of those seamless integrations between the SAP products and product suites. One of the other things that a lot of our customers are leveraging the solution for include the ability to take, say, your sales by customer over a period of time. In my case, I ran through about 7 years worth of data, and what I wanted to do was run customer segmentation. In other words, running a clustering algorithm using a K-means algorithm to build my customer segments. The great thing about something like this is if you really want to get a very granular forecast, you can take your actual sales, run it through this algorithm, build out your customer segment, and then run a forecasting algorithm on top of that to generate your forecast by customer and push that back into VPC. Pushing it back is just a matter of about 3 clicks to send this data back into the planning solution. So with that being said, I did want to give you an opportunity to, instead of hearing and watching me go through the VPC demo, take advantage of it on your own. We're offering 2 hands-on VPC workshops within the next couple of months. The first one being on March 5th in the Philadelphia area at our SAP office in Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. And then another on March 7th on the West Coast in Palo Alto. They're full-day workshops, and they're free to you to attend. Lunch is actually provided, and if you'd like to register on the Performative website, this deck, including this particular slide, is available, and you simply click on the link that appears at the bottom in order to register for the event. So with that being said, thank you once again for joining us today, and I'm going to hand back over to John. John?
Great. Thank you so much, David. A lot of ground covered, a lot of very interesting elements to that solution, and thanks for walking us through it very well. So we have a Q&A period that is next up, and I will take this moment to remind folks to go ahead and ask their questions, so hopefully we can get them in. We have a number of questions queued up already, and we're going to jump right into those. But if you do have questions between now and the end of today's event, please feel free to ask them. If we don't get a chance to answer your question, I'll work with David, and we'll work on getting you a follow-up directly. So let's just start out with the questions here, which is number 1, must companies be using an SAP core ERP platform in order to use this planning and consolidation tool?
A great question, John. Actually, the answer to that question is no. We offer SAP BPC on 2 platforms. The NetWeaver platform, which is typically used by customers who also are using the SAP Business Warehouse or BW, or the BPC Microsoft platform.
Great, thank you for that. Is this platform solely available on-premise or via software as a service, or both?
Another great question. So one of the things that we recently looked at was, it's similar to going out and buying a car. You walk into a dealership, and you don't look around the dealership floor for a financing option or a way to pay for the tool. You actually look around for the vehicle itself, and the financing kind of takes place at the end. Well, think about this and the BPC solution in a similar fashion. You can either select the BPC version or BPC to run hosted or on-premise rather in your own shop, or you can take advantage of more of a cloud-like offering that's available to you both on a monthly or hourly basis. Interesting.
Okay, great. All right, we've got the questions piling in now, so we're just going to keep moving on here. First off, if someone wants to learn more, do they call SAP directly? Do they go through a systems integrator? What would be, of course, actually, I would toss 2 cents in here as a reminder in the post-event survey. If you do want to follow up with David or have someone from SAP follow up, you can click there. But traditionally speaking, do people go through their local SI or go directly to SAP to find out more?
Actually, both options will work. I would strongly encourage you to reach out using the link that's being provided based on today's webinar, but also any number of the folks within the analytics organization here at SAP would be more than willing to help you out, as well as many of our partners, one of which, Sandpoint Consulting, who is partnered with us on the hands-on workshops that are taking place in March.
Great. Okay, next question. If you are using an underlying SAP ERP product and in conjunction with this planning and consolidation, if you added a new product or a new dimension in the underlying ERP, would that just show up as being available in the consolidation and planning tool?
Absolutely. So, I'm sorry.
Or would you have to, manually add it to the planning tool?
So, great question, and the answer is it would come over just along with the rest of your master data. In fact, out of the box, some of the master data elements that we turn on or make available to you immediately are things like your GL accounts, your cost centers and profit centers, company codes, things of that nature, as well as your products. So, your SKUs and all of those things will come over and become immediately available to you. Now, the piece of maintenance, or what could be a piece of maintenance depending on how you deploy it, would be if those items need to come over in a hierarchy and you don't have the hierarchy established in your source system, you can address that with either rules or by manually adjusting using the hierarchy editor, as I showed earlier during the demo, within VPC. Or, as I mentioned before, take advantage of the hierarchy as it exists within your source system and bring that over as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. Is this a large enterprise-focused tool, or do you have similar tools for small businesses, like let's say sub $50 million?
So great question. So it's actually a tool that's built to scale. We have customers both in large enterprise, some of the largest retailers and manufacturers, as well as some of the smaller shops. So independently owned companies that have used BPC. It really goes across the entire market, from small to large.
Okay. Have you, I have a specific question here, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it because I know we have a number of local, state, and local government folks on the call. Is this platform, has it been run in a local, state, and government environment before? Do you guys have use cases for that, successes there?
We actually have recently announced a rapid deployment solution for public sector, which has been adopted quite well by state and local government, higher education, DoD, and federal practices as well.
Okay. Now I have a couple of questions asking to compare performance of the current version of BPC to past versions. Have there been performance improvements and upgrades as the platform has been versioned?
Absolutely. So we've continued to invest in improving performance, as well as I showed a little earlier, or spoke to a little earlier, the ability to take advantage of BPC on top of the SAP in-memory solution, which is HANA. We found that the performance improvements have been dramatic over time. And in its latest iteration, BPC version 10, running on HANA, it's lightning fast, real time.
So both architecturally within the platform plus combining with the HANA platform, in both instances, there are sort of generational performance improvements.
Absolutely.
Okay. Another quick detailed question. Do you guys have banks using BPC, something which you would be able to speak directly to folks interested in banking applications about?
Absolutely. We probably have one of the largest banks in the world as a BPC customer today. Okay. But the financial services industry seems to be one of our strongest sectors in adopting BPC of late.
Okay. Are you able to speak at all to how foreign currency planning is done via the platform, and are there features that help you handle FX exposures and translation adjustments, et cetera?
Absolutely. So one of the out-of-the-box tools is the ability to do foreign currency translation directly within the solution. And I'll give a personal sort of anecdote here. As a member of finance, one of the challenges that I had in my past was when we implemented our ERP solution, one of the entities that we created was established with a functional currency. For this example, let's say it was pound sterling. And what we found was that over time, over a series of years, we realized that over 70% of our business was actually being transacted in euros. The challenge that we faced was that it's extremely difficult to make a change to the functional currency of an entity within your ERP solution, but we were able to overcome that challenge by directly creating an additional reporting currency within BPC. So at any given time, we could see what we were reporting from a statutory perspective, as well as what was the true currency neutral impact on a particular financial statement by using that reporting currency.
Got it. Great. And of course, people can learn more by communicating with you or their local SAP representative. Can you talk a little bit about the implementation of a solution like this? Of course, there are companies of varying sizes, but how does one work? Where how absorbing is this? How complex is this? How many links into other systems, et cetera? Can you just talk a little bit about how folks would tackle the implementation challenge and how complex an implementation this turns out to be in practice?
That's a great question, and it always has to be answered with the "it depends" response. I've seen
my favorite response.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said that's one of my favorite responses.
And it always varies based on the scope, of course. The thing that I tend to direct people to do is, whenever you're taking on any sort of implementation, look at it from two perspectives. What's my biggest pain point? And what's the thing that I think I could tackle really quickly and get an easy and quick success? If you do that, what you'll find is that it gives you the ability to get a quick return on your investment, but also learn quite a bit about the solution and its capabilities along the way. I've seen implementations that only take about 2 or 3 months to go through, say, a consolidations implementation, and it really all depends on the scope as well as the participation of the business user.
Okay, great. How much of the VPC platform is user configurable? The UI, the tools that you would keep close to hand, screens that you're creating, reports that you create, et cetera.
So the reports and the forms are all extremely configurable within the context of either the EPM Addin, the Excel UI, Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, or the web form. But once again, one of the things that I showed at the end was leveraging other SAP visualization tools, which are seamlessly integrated with VPC as well. So there's quite a bit that you can do in terms of really customizing it and giving it the look and feel that works for your organization and culture.
Okay, great. And just as a final question, in terms of industries that are covered by this tool, is there any sort of predominant industry where you've seen success, or does this tend to play across industries and folks just customize it for their particular needs?
It tends to play across industries. We have a lot of large financial services companies. It's been extremely well received by retailers as well as consumer products groups. But we also see a lot in oil and gas and utilities. So it really does kind of, it's pervasive across all industries at this point.
Okay. Great. And we do have a handful of other questions. I'm going to work with David and the good folks at SAP to address those after this event. We always want to make sure that we get started on time and that we finish on time to be respectful of everyone's time here. So we're going to go ahead and move into the final closing items here. Number one, I do ask you to stick around. There's literally a 60-second survey. We'd love you to give us that extra minute, let us know how we did, what we could do better. And also, if you would like to connect with David or other folks at SAP, it's just a click of a mouse away, so that's very easy to request while you take that survey. I'd like to give a great thanks to David, who presented fantastically a whole bunch of very complex, actually not that complex, but far-ranging elements in today's presentation. So David, thank you so much for giving us your time and insight this morning.
Thank you.
Also, thanks to SAP for helping us put on today's event. It was highly informative, and it's the support of folks like SAP that allow us to bring great educational content both through presentations and online at performative.com to our user base. So thanks to SAP. And with that, I will say thanks to everyone for attending today's webinar. We greatly appreciate you giving us this hour. We know how busy everyone is these days. So any time taken away from your regular work is valuable. We hope you found it to be very well spent. I will go ahead and close down the webinar at this point, and then you will be brought straight over to the post-webinar survey. Thanks, everyone. We hope to see you again at another Performative event or online at performative.com. Take care.